Good evening. Welcome to the Genoa Township Zoning Commission. Today is February 27th, 2023, 7 o'clock. We're in Township Hall. Agenda items for this evening are zoning case 2023-02, the comprehensive plan, the second meeting, and zoning case 2023-03, zoning resolution, second meeting. Staff present, Joe Schaefer, Development and Zoning Director, Paul Benson, Deputy Zoning Director, and Peter Griggs from Brochus, Johnson, and Griggs. Roll.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Present.
Mr. Carter.
Present.
Ms. Walsh. Mr. Welch.
Here.
Mr. Leff.
Here.
And Mr. Sears
Mr. Sears is here too. Statement of policy, this meeting may be recorded. Such recordings are public record and may be posted online and could be subject to review in court. As it is the adopted policy of the Zoning Commission, all applicants will be granted an opportunity to make their formal presentation. The audience may be then granted an opportunity to comment, followed by the applicant's response to and questions from the commission. The chairperson may limit the repetitive debate and reserves the following rights: to limit comment to items on the agenda, to limit public comment to 5 minutes per person, to restrict the number of times a member of public is permitted to speak, and to enact any other reasonable ad hoc protocols or measures necessary to maintain a fair, safe, and orderly meeting. This policy was adopted by the commission to provide for the respectful, constructive, and efficient discussion of business scheduled for consideration and to allow for proper due process as required by law. First item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the February 15th, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
I second the motion.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Mr. Schaefer, roll.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes.
Mr. Leff.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Time is now 7:02 p.m. Genoa Township Zoning Commission initiated comprehensive plan amendment, zoning case 2023-02, to the January 7th, 2019 revision of the 2016 Genoa Township Comprehensive Plan to update land use and density recommendations in designated planning areas, Chapter 4, and the comprehensive plan map. Delete outdated text, Chapter 5, and update actions which have been completed since the previous plan, Chapter 5. This is continued from February 15th, 2023 meeting. For anybody willing to speak this evening, please rise and be sworn in. If you're going to speak at all, comments, you're going to walk up to the mic at any one point tonight. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Be seated. The legal notice for this meeting was printed and published on February 1st, 2023 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on January 24th of 2023. Following exhibits were added or updated, which is Exhibit C, sign-in sheets, Exhibit E, the DCRPC recommendation made February 23rd of 2023, and Exhibit G, all public comments received between January 17th, 2023 and February 27th, 2023. Mr. Schaefer, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gave the presentation at the last meeting. I believe I really don't have anything to add to what I presented at the last meeting, so I think at this point we were interested in hearing more additional public comment. Obviously, I'm here to answer questions and can talk as little or as much as you want me to.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. With that, we'll be coming to public comments. Since we're not packed full, we can go whatever order we want to go in. So name and address when you're at the mic. Is that on, Joe?
Yes.
By the way? So anybody willing to speak, public comment is open. And remember, we're just talking about the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Is it on?
It is on. That green light's on, it's on.
My name's Clint Warner, 5920 Plum Road. The last meeting that I was here at, you had a couple agendas in front of it. And I thought a lot of us didn't even realize that the rest of the meeting was for the plan. That's why a lot of us got up and walked out. We thought, well, they're not doing anything for us. Now, didn't you just revise either the comprehensive plan or the zoning resolution? Didn't that just have a new date set with it?
That was for the overlay. The overlay was put in place, so that was a revision that was completed.
That's just the Hoover overlay? Yes. So the resolution and the comprehensive plan haven't been updated since when?
The resolution was last updated last year with the overlay. The comprehensive plan was last updated January 2019.
It's mainly for the comprehensive plan that this, I mean, this is the biggest change is gonna be there. The overlay, what did the overlay do? The overlay basically made it so in the areas where the overlay was over, it reduced the density. So that means lesser houses.
Yeah.
So that actually, the overlay did that already.
Okay.
What we're basically doing now is, all the densities are even lower now in this new plan. So they're gonna be in the comprehensive plan, even lower densities, and the lowest density of all is gonna be posted in the zoning resolution. So if a developer even wants to do a higher density than what is in the zoning resolution, which is the lowest number, if they want to do higher, they look into the comprehensive plan where we put the new numbers in, which are lower than the ones that are in place now, and then they can go up till that number. So basically, we're, in general, lowering the densities. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
In answer to your question. In answer to your question too, in 2016 is when the last formal redo of the comprehensive plan was fully. At that point, that's when people came to meetings and said what they wanted and everything. And at that point, planning areas 2, 3, and 4 were 0.75 net density if there was sewer available and they were going to do a planned residential development, not for regular houses, normally. And 0.75 means 1 house per 1 1/3 acre. For planning area 5, it was 1.1 house or 1.35 house per acre, depending on conservation, size of lot, and how much green space. And for planning area 1, it was still 1.8 and 2.2, and that's pretty much built out. But in 2019, they took those, the trustees at the time took those densities out. And what we're trying to do is put them back in and honor what the people have said.
Okay, that's the biggest thing is, it seems like a lot of numbers have changed or something. Most people that live evidently, like you're talking in section 4, I believe I'm in section 5, the last house in Genoa next to 3B and a K. And there's nothing on my side of the freeway to be built out in Genoa Township. But it just seems like the people that come to the meetings, there's not enough of us because everybody lives on bigger acreage. So we're covering a bigger area, but with less people, So it just seems hard to battle some of this stuff. And to get on the computer and try to find something that you're looking for is a nightmare. And that's the thing, like, we're supposed to understand all this. Well, we have a better chance reading the Bible and understanding it. You can go click on one thing and it takes you to 10 other lists. So I don't know how you guys manage all of it. Like I said, I think I was trying to get on it before I came here, what Zone 4 was and what Zone 5 was. But I pretty much saw it, I think, in one of the other meetings. So that I was checking, and I can't get into any of the other issues. So I was just...
The planning area map is in the comp plan. So if you pull up the comp plan from the document section, it'll have the map showing all the different sections.
Okay. And I also had pulled up a plan where you've already, because Genoa is about built out, is what it is. 95 neighborhoods have been built. You guys have a map of the neighborhoods. 95 of them, starting from the south, pushing north. Well, now the line's right up the road, and we'd like to keep this little section a little more rural to fit in with the neighborhoods. But I was just wondering when the dates were of the comp plan and things like that. Thanks.
Thanks, Clint. Next. Anybody?
I'm Betty Teagarden, 5061 Worthington Road. And I think the lower density because, and I'm just speaking for our neighborhood, right where you talk to your neighbors and everything, we can barely get out of our driveway most of the time. And the more that dumps in there, welcome to Genoa, and we want to make people friendly, but I don't think we need more people living on top of us. We like to see change and growth, but good change and growth for the community and for what the people around here that are already paying taxes and trying to keep up with their properties. Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening, Annette McMurray, 3690 Worthington Road. So I am currently in Planning Area 4, which is also a part of the Hoover overlay. So with this new plan, the net density will be 1.35, and I just wanted to encourage the commission to really look at that and consider that, considering where this space is. And I'll echo what you have to say. It's difficult at times getting out of my driveway. I can wait for quite some time, and there's a couple of dips in the road, and it's kind of like, okay, do I go? Do I go? Do I? Yeah. And so I just really would like us to continue to keep the densities lower so that we don't continue to crowd or, as you said, live on top of each other, because it's becoming, I think, a hazard in a lot of ways. So thank you very much.
No, no. Come on up. Name and address, please.
Rick Wheeland, 9500 Britton Woods Drive. Are you talking about anything with the zoning resolution yet, or are you still on the comprehensive plan?
This is the comp plan portion.
I'll be back.
Yep, thank you. Anybody in the back? Over here?
I'm sorry, I came in late. Are we addressing zoning in general or just as?
This is the comp plan portion. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we'll close public comment at this point. Commission discussion?
Favor of the amendments to the plan.
Anything?
Need to add anything at
Okay.
this point?
Yeah, I'm just reference to all the correspondence we've received so far. All of it but one was once lower density and once, would remain a rural feel here. One past zoning commission member said, I'm in favor of the two amendments, returning our comprehensive plan and zoning resolution back to the lower density values that stood in place for most of these years. And she's referring to the 2016 ones. Also, we had the member who was on the commission for the comprehensive plan that said he was on it, and they felt that those densities for that time still were held true today. I just want to make a motion later on a change of the numbers that we previously were talking about, whenever that's appropriate.
Well, this would be the time to talk about whatever,
Okay,
because it's open at this point.
sure. I move that the zoning commission recommend,
No, we're not making a motion.
We're not making a
So
motion,
we
so
can-
don't
we
make a
can-
motion.
Don't make a motion,
okay.
but we
What-
can we're in discussion.
Right, gotcha. Okay, for planning area 5, I think returning it to 1.1/1.35 is the appropriate thing to do.
Hold on. Paul, can you pull up the map with the densities as proposed, please? I think we had the zoning district with the numbers.
Yeah, so for planning area 5, it was 1.1, 1.35. Currently, we're recommending 1.35, 1.65. I recommend that it be 1.1.35, based, because that's what it was, and that seems to be after what we went through before all the planning area 5 people were in. That's what they seem to want, and I think it's a fair thing.
Why do you want to change the numbers all of a sudden again with how much discussion we've had about this, number one? Number two, the history of each of the planning areas that we currently have and how it would be legally defensible with the numbers. And this is and there's already a drop.
Well, it's legally defensible because it fits into what, the people of this township have said they want through our comprehensive plans. It maintains the rural feel of this area, and it was what was there before. And recently, we had, a development come in, and even though we've discussed them, I did bring up that areas 4 and 5, where I didn't think were appropriate numbers and should be a little bit lower.
But that doesn't make it defensible. That's my
Well,
concern.
1.35, 1.65 may not be defensible. It's not going to be any different defensible for 1.1, 1.35. And the Ohio Revised Code says we have the right to put out there what we feel is right for our community. And that's, I just think, everybody we've had talk in front of us for the last couple months has wanted to have 1.1, 1.35 back to what, when they moved in.
And
It's like,
I think a statement of fact would be the majority of them said the numbers that we reduced it to are acceptable. With,
what?
I think the numbers we've reduced it to keep the lower density has been acceptable.
well, that's where we.
Preponderance of what I read.
Well, first of all, we didn't really reduce them, because when 2016, 1.1, 1.35 was the density for planning area 5. When they removed all the densities, then it could go to a maximum, but it didn't say what that was. It left it unresolved, so there was no 1.35, 1.65 there. And I think that area, it should be more 1.1, 1.35.
But those numbers were all based off of a sewer study that is no longer valid.
That's no longer valid.
Well,
And then we have buildings that have occurred, and now we're talking about what's available and what can be done.
right, but most of these, when these areas were built, that's what the people who moved in were told what it was. So do we arbitrarily raise the density limits where they are, just because it's not defendable by a sewer thing from way back? That was what everybody accepted. That's when people moved in. That's what we held people to build at that time, before the densities were taken out. So even though they've theoretically gone up, they really, and coming back down to 1.3, 1.65 is not lowering the densities. It's just lowering it from what, unfortunately, it ended up being for a while. And actually, the Hoover overlay is 1.35. And, part of planning area 5 is in the Hoover overlay. Not much of it, but some of it is. So that's my reasoning for that.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm not in favor of that right now, but if you want to keep talking about the other numbers.
Sure. The other is planning area 4. Planning areas 2, 3, and 4 were all 0.75 or 1 house per 1/3 acre if a PRD is going to be built and sewer is available, of course. And why we would make planning area 4 different than 2 and 3. And 2 and 3 are very similar. I don't know why they were designated 2 separate areas. But 4 is very similar to 2 and 3. It's on Hoover, definitely part of the Hoover overlay, which is 2, 3, and 4 are all that in the Hoover overlay, which was 1.35. But I think, this was always 0.75. So now to all these residents that live there, including the people who lived around the Benelkauser property and every place else, were told when they moved in, there would be 1 house per 1/3 acre.
Again, based on a sewer study and/or available land use that is no longer valid.
But planning area 4 was, that sewer, I don't think that was discussed in there, was it, under planning area 4?
Sure, we've had
Was it?
discussions about what was available from, not just sewer, but what was sanitary, what was septic
So-
system, what was available, what was.
Historically, when the county originally laid out sewer back in the 70s, planning area 4 was never going to have it. That changed when the lift station went in. I can tell you, I sit on the executive committee of the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission. One of the other members on that committee is the head of the county sewer department. I've discussed this issue with her, Tiffany Mag. Tiffany has told me that the county used to be very conservative. And to the point where I got the impression where she felt like conservative beyond really needing to be as conservative as they used to be regarding sewer taps. That has changed drastically. That's just not their approach anymore. And their modeling has evolved greatly. They used, she could use all the technical terms. They use basically an old-fashioned way of modeling that they don't use anymore. That was not nearly as accurate. They have the ability now to be much more sophisticated in their modeling, and they have much more real-time data that they're using. So they are much more confident in the, they had to be conservative back then, I guess, because the way they modeled just wasn't sophisticated enough. They wanted to leave some room for error. So they always erred on the side of caution. They've got a lot better data and a lot more sophistication in their modeling these days, hence why that old sewer plan is null and void, that they utilize now. And there's been, just policy changes, I would say, really at the county level. The county used to be very conservative regarding growth. That's just no longer the impression I get from those offices and agencies up there. I'm not saying that, they wanted things to go hog wild. I don't think that's the case at all. But I think in terms of, they know they need to design the infrastructure to accommodate what's coming either here and elsewhere and in the region. And in doing that, the infrastructure is just going to be able to handle more than what the original or older projections indicated. Roads are still very much playing catch up. I think that's pretty obvious to everyone that, and that's not a slight against the engineer's office, just so much happened in such a short period of time. There's only so many dollars to go around, and, Genoa is in Liberty and Orange, all developed sort of around the same time. So they're trying to catch up here and meanwhile get ahead of it in sort of the northern areas where it's headed, so they don't have to play catch up there. So, but yeah, as far as sewer goes, I have no faith in that, in those numbers from that 2004, 2005 plan. I think it's just based off of a time in history and conditions that just no longer exist.
Well, okay, to continue that is, even if that doesn't, if the sewer thing, okay, I don't know what we based everything on. If we based it on that, we still sold houses to people. Somebody bought a house, and this is what the density was when they moved in. So do we say, oh, sewer's going to be available next door, so now we're going to put it in at 2.2? Is that,
But I don't think anybody said that. If you're looking at the averages in
Had a case
planning
like
area
that.
4, they're 1.34, 1.14, 1.43, and 1.66, which was by consent decree when we were in a lawsuit. So if you take the average of them, the mean's 1.39.
okay?
And I
And I
just,
got those right from our township.
and
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't think.
circumstances change. I think it's our responsibility to adapt the plans. And I just don't think it's realistic, honestly, and I know this is going to be an unpopular phrase, for people to expect that what was the law 25 years ago is going to remain the law. There's revised code changes annually, monthly. The laws change, zoning regulations change, comprehensive plan visions change. Things happened in that past 20 years. Polaris, Worthington being realigned, Germain Amphitheater comes and goes. Now we're talking about Intel, the malls in Easton. There's just been so much that's happened. It's just, I don't know how we can look at a document and look at the past 25 years at everything that's happened and say we can keep those same policies and that they make sense.
And Jim,
To me, it just doesn't make logical
I
sense.
agree that we need to protect Genoa Township. I firmly believe that. But I also think we need to make sure that it is defensible and logic. And that's why I asked for all these numbers to be pulled, because I wanted to see the numbers.
First of all, I don't think we should include the Benelkaiser property in there because that's not something we decided on.
Well, it's something
Well, it
that's,
depends on how you look at it, okay.
council, is that now going to be?
We have to live with that.
Right, we have to
It got
live with
handed
it.
to us, so
But
it's
it wasn't
now
something-
legitimate.
It wasn't something that the township did in its own, in a way, but there was a referendum, there's a whole lot of security, other things around it. But the thing about planning area 4 is there are still a lot of people with 2-acre lots, 5-acre lots. So to them, it's like, well, we did this, so now we can do that next to you. For one thing, when you look at the actual density that the developer said for the first Vinmar, it was a swap. It was swapped with a couple different developments, and we got the land on the other side of 3 that's over by Fleur Road, the park, and all that kind of stuff. So the true density there was like 1.12. So that's the number you really need to use. And what happened then was the Romanelli and Hughes came in and said, do you understand that?
It wasn't 1.1.
No, but when they,
It's not. It was
yes,
not
I
even
know,
close to
what they
that.
did was they traded off for it
That's how it
someplace
got
else.
down to the number that it was. The neighborhood itself is higher.
I know, but in the, correct me if I'm wrong, developers' notes say the actual density as considered for playing for that is 1.12 or something along those lines.
I can't speak to that. I can't say, I'm not a fan of the off-site dedications. I don't know how you would know if you live in an area in the neighborhood on the east side of the township that part of the open space that waters down. And to me, they're numbers on paper, to be honest, when you start doing that. It's like, when you drive through Vinmar Farms, it looks and feels a certain way. And that's really what we're trying to achieve, look and feel, not numbers on paper, to me.
Right.
We want to look and feel. And I agree with Ms. Walsh in regards to the protection and the conservation of the environment. I'm totally all for that too. I don't want people to get the impression that I'm not. My biggest fear is if we don't get numbers in here that are realistic, not only are we going to not have a fun time, legal issues aside, part of this is to try to get away from all the angst and anger and contention we've been having ever since I started here 7.5 years ago. If you set these numbers low, my biggest fear is people think we're going to stop having those fights. I can guarantee you we will not. In fact, they will get worse because the developers are going to come in with what they want. They're going to look at your numbers. They're going to think they're unrealistic. They may even shoot higher than what they want, knowing these numbers are so unrealistic. They'll deny me. I'll go to court and I'll get a judge to give me what I want. That's a very real threat, and that's a tactic I've heard in seminars that some developers use.
They are using
So,
elsewhere.
so we have, fair or not, right or wrong, that's the world we live in, and I think we are not serving the best interest of the community if we just say, well, to ignore that. So I just want to make sure we got numbers we can work with. Are the developers going to be happy? No, they'll never be happy. I'm not saying let's pick a number that's going to make the developer happy. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. We need to have a number that we can both sit down at a table and have a respectful conversation and maybe come to, I don't want to say compromise. Whatever numbers we put down are the ones we need to go with. But I just don't want to set us up for, I feel like if we go too low, we're just setting up ourselves for another 7.5 years of fights. And to me, that's one of the primary objectives of this is let's put this issue to bed for at least a few years until the next big Intel announcement comes along. We have to revisit the scenarios. But try to put this issue to bed and try to get us a document that works for everybody. That's I think, what needs to be the objective here.
How many times did we get sued before with the old numbers?
Wasn't here, I can't say. I will say, though, we also granted density divergences for 3 high-density condos. So those weren't all popular decisions, and I'm not here to say they were the right decisions. I wasn't here for any of those. But the township did show willingness to work with developers, and I think that's why. To me, things got very contentious when we started giving signs out that we were no longer willing to work with people. When we started to become hardline and draw the line in the sand.
I think when it got contentious was when they approved those 3 areas up at, 3.5, 4.0 density. That's when the public got mad. Had that not been done, I think we'd be moving along just fine.
But has the reality of any of those concerns other than the look, I understand people sometimes don't like how they look, but I drive down Tussock and Maxtown frequently. I cannot say they are been injurious to the community at all. Courtyards at Maxtown, the other option was going to be probably a parking lot expansion for Heritage, which we would have gotten no tax revenue on. One of the Tussock ones, a religious establishment was looking at, I believe. No tax revenue on. People think just because we would deny something, that means nothing's going to happen. Like, there are other things other than PRDs that can go into these areas, and some of them we have little to no control over, depending on if it's it could be a utility substation. I mean, a lot of people are not happy with what's going on at Sunbury and, was that Harlem, I think?
Yeah.
The pig lot.
We have no say-so over that. I mean, it's not like something we voted
No,
on.
but if
The
we
township
leave
has no
land
say.
available, you leave yourself open and vulnerable to that kind of stuff happening. And I'm not saying religious establishments are bad either, but I mean, from a traffic standpoint and impact standpoint, yeah, they're quiet certain times, but other times they are not very quiet. I think you can talk to people who live by Heritage or Genoa Baptist Church, and they're fine churches, fine operations, but we all know they have an impact on the community.
One of the other things we looked at was what the real density was in planning areas 2, 3, and 4, and the others also. In planning area 4, do you remember what it was when you considered all the rural residential homes? Wasn't it like 0.8 or something?
I don't recall the number specifically.
0.61. It was 0.61, so that's the density out there, outside of PRDs.
But that's a little bit apples and oranges because you're talking about net density versus gross density. And density, again, is a number on a piece of paper. I can, depending on how I measure it, unless you're talking about flat out gross density, I can make that number as high or low as I want, just depending on what I'm gonna consider and not consider when I do the calculations.
So you're saying the .61 is nowhere near correct? It could be
Jim,
5.0?
but you're also talking about, we're talking about what we're gonna go to from a PRD perspective, if it's properly rezoned.
Right.
You're talking about all the rural residential.
I know,
That's
and
change, that's a
because
completely
we
different
asked for
ballgame.
those- But we asked for those numbers
I
before.
understand
because
that,
we
but
wanted to
you
know.
can't apply a .61 rural residential number on average to what a PRD rezoning would be.
And we also can't use the PRD numbers in planning area 4. What if somebody snuck in we have a 4 and a 5, or a 4 and a 3? I mean, so now does,
Okay, so
no,
we,
in
but we,
planning
but we
area
we
one-
have the averages. We know
Planning
exactly
area
what they
one.
are.
yeah, we know exactly where they are. So does that make
In
that
4?
okay? Well, in planning area
In
1.
4, there's
Planning
nothing.
area
Oh, I
1.
thought
No,
you
there's
all
said
in
not.
one.
4.
No, planning area 1. I mean, so does, using that as a precedence to say we should be able to do this other, I disagree with.
That's why we set up the numbers we've set up, and that's what we've
I
proposed.
just think they should be slightly lower. And I think particularly planning area 5,
Okay, but
why can't they go back to 1.1, 1.35, where they were?
in which one?
Planning area 5. It's, there's partly in the Hoover overlay, partly not, which means that area would be 1.35 anyway. So why don't we make it 1.1, 1.35 for that whole area?
Did we not match the Hoover overlay in that? Which is why we picked those numbers?
Yes.
Well, then
We
pick
matched it, we
1.35
picked the
and
Hoover
1.
overlay, which we spent a lot of time on doing.
Right.
This
And
still
what was
does
a
not
reasonable
allow high
number?
density in,
Pardon?
it still does not allow high density in
Right,
these
but the top,
areas.
the top
by any
density,
stretch.
the top density in the Hoover overlay is 1.35, correct?
Yes.
135, 160,
And,
right?
yes.
No, 1.35.
In
In Hoover overlay.
Yeah.
In Hoover overlay, 135, yes.
Right, so why don't we have the top density be 1.35 for the rest of planning area 5? I mean, part of planning area 5 is gonna be held to 1.35, not much.
But a very small area.
I'm just saying part of it
But
is.
the rest of it is.
What are the numbers in parentheses?
So yeah, as a refresher, the numbers in parentheses are what the maximum density would be allowed if the property is subject to the Hoover overlay watershed district.
I
So
don't remember if it was the overlay or if it was
It's the overlay.
conservation.
it's the overlay district.
I mean, can we meet Jim a little bit? I mean, just lower these in 5 a tiny bit? I'm just,
Okay, so the whole reason we came up with those numbers was also based on the change we made to the suburban residential to go to 30,000. We made a
Right.
calculation in what the normal equivalency was going to be going to PRD. If we're going to start talking about that, now we're talking about changing suburban again. So the equivalency of getting the 2.2 was 20,000 square foot lots on per acre.
Get it,
Okay?
it's only planning area
So-
1.
What?
Planning area
No,
1 only?
the 2.2 real number, the reason it came up was because that's the equivalency
Right.
of a 20,000 square foot lot.
Right.
So we raised to 30 so we could
Right.
get to the number, which gets us to like mid 1.2, 1.3, which is darn close. We then said Hoover overlay, which is what our reference was going to be.
Okay.
So I thought we were all in pretty good agreement with where we were, with the numbers that we put in place and how we reduced them when we got into those planning areas.
And I think you even proposed them.
I did.
And
But-
now you want to propose
And now you wanna
smaller
propose
numbers.
different-
But we
also the
feel
last
that at
two
this point,
meetings I've
from
been
all the
talking about
discussion,
how they should be
but from
lower.
all the discussion that we had, we've gotten to the point where we said that this is a defensible number. We have background in all the different all the different developments that were done. If we take out the high-density ones, which we'll consider the 3s and the 5s, right? If we take those out, we're all pretty close to where we need to be. And what is, if we were to go defend it, it's saying, here's what other like communities are going to be in the area. And we've reduced it even further than what those like communities were.
And none of this allows for high density. None.
So,
What do you consider high density?
I'm sorry, but public comment's closed for this part.
I just believe,
We have another whole section of public comment.
yeah, first of all, when you asked me for the numbers, I threw some out there because I felt like we're gonna have discussion, nobody else had any numbers. And most of them you held with. But I just, upon reflection, looking at it, listening to all the people from, the next door to Epcon and even the people up in, where the Romanelli and Hughes is proposing around there, that's all planning area 5 and what they're looking for.
And none of this will apply to that because they've already submitted their application. So no matter what we do with this,
Yep.
none of that will apply to the Romanelli Mirasol, or Mira
None
Luna,
of it.
sorry.
Absolutely, but there are other properties around that may be developed. And I'm just saying, they put their stuff in before, and the Hoover overlay didn't apply to them because they went in before that. But before that, we used to have 1.1, 1.35 in Planning Area 5 before the trustees in 2019 took it out. So because the trustees in 2019 took it out, does that mean all those neighborhoods should be penalized? Because it was wide open for a while legally? Do you agree with me?
Those numbers were in the comp plan. They were not a enforceable standard to what people were submitting plans for.
I believe until the Benelkauser thing came up, that was when everybody said, oh, comp plan's not good. But before that, every development note you look at says, in the comprehensive plan, we're abiding by these, or they do trade-offs or something like that. Did you, you were on the zoning commission, didn't you follow the comprehensive plan numbers before? I mean, didn't you look at those when
The zoning
developments came in?
resolution, the zoning resolution is what we were allowed to look at.
Right, so you didn't look at the comprehensive plan numbers before?
Whatever was developed, whatever was submitted, we compare it to the zoning resolution.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion anyways. I mean, I don't have any more discussion on it.
Sebastian, you got anything else?
I have nothing anymore.
Okay. You got anything? Either of you?
I don't think I have anything to add, Mr. Griggs.
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, I think you're at the point where, you know, a motion needs to be made.
So I guess for point of clarification, I guess you could make a motion to try to make changes in it, or whether or not you're gonna make a motion to make a recommendation noting the changes in the recommendation. I guess you need to make that decision on how you're gonna
So
proceed.
you can make a motion to approve, or you can make a motion to approve with modification.
And if we make the approval motion, that's sending it to the Board of Trustees. For them
Correct.
to go
Either
through that
way, yep.
process. What am I? Are we missing something here?
Two? 2 to 3?
Yep, that says
Yeah.
continuance motion, and then there's approval. Is that it? That's just the thing? No.
Yeah, it's pretty brief.
Yeah, top of page 3, I think, is the approval.
So I would say at this point, we're going to make a motion. I don't know that we need to have another session on this. Would we agree or not?
No, I mean, I've said everything I need to say. I mean,
Okay.
Is Jim going to make his motion prior to voting on the overall resolution? Is it,
I mean, from what it's sounding, to me, it appears that just a motion to approve is probably going to carry the day. So I would recommend that that motion be made, and if Mr. Carter wants to voice his opinion as to why that's appropriate or not appropriate, I mean, you're certainly free to do
I don't know
such.
if this is the appropriate thing to do, but for my motion for Planning Area 5 to be 1.1.35 instead of 1.35/1.65, I would vote for that. Are the rest of you going to vote for it or against it? I mean, I don't know if I can ask you that at this point or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can have that discussion. What we're talking about is an approval with a modification at that point. If you want to change the
I'd like to
density
find out
as
what
been
each commissioner wants to
proposed.
do, and then, I mean, if it's not going to carry the day, or whatever you call that, if it's not going to pass, then we might as well go ahead with the other one.
So you have the ability to modify what's presently in front of you. If you don't want to modify it, then it's just a motion to approve.
Does he have the ability to straw poll the individual members?
Well, I think you can have that conversation right now if you want. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay,
I think right now
Well,
we're
it's
just
not a motion,
having,
it's a discussion.
yeah, I think it's just a
It's not
discussion
actually a
point.
motion.
I can make a motion, it'll be pretty quick. I mean, if we vote on it.
I'll be quiet so I don't muddy the waters here. Just follow Mr. Griggs.
So we're just going to have an open
I,
discussion. on
I, I
what
would,
Mr.
I would
Carter's
prefer to
proposing.
have it an open discussion because you typically only get one bite at the apple when you make a decision.
So I'll say, I
That
would
makes
prefer at this point, the approval motion is what we have already presented and not change anything.
Okay,
I would agree with that. Let it go to the trustees.
as is.
Based on the existing densities, or based on the densities, excuse me, based on the densities of the existing PRDs in planning areas 4 and 5, I would vote to keep it the way it's proposed as written. I mean, I understand your concerns, but from what the numbers that Mr. Schaefer has provided, what we've proposed matches within a tenth or two. I mean, you can't make it exact. The densities, they're already existing. And so I think your issue is being addressed. If we're maintaining the feel of what's already there, then it seems not only have we maintained what the residents want, but we have a justifiably legally justifiable position of we've set densities based on what's already in existence.
And I agree. I mean, that's why I wanted all these numbers on everything we have, to make sure that we represent our residents well.
I understand that, but it's also, those numbers are there, but there's numbers in planning area 1 of the 3 contested areas of the higher density that would not make that, would make that argument moot, because we wouldn't say, well, there were these in here, I know you're looking at all the ones in our planning area 4, but we wouldn't raise
This is
it.
much lower than what would be an average in 1, Jim.
Pardon?
This is much lower than what would be an average in 1.
Much lower than,
What would be the average for planning area 1 also, based on what I'm seeing?
yeah, okay.
I'm definitely for lower, but I don't know if I can agree with the 1.1 and the 1.35. I think it's because then 4, 3, and 2 always have been special area because of the overlay and where they are positioned towards where the watershed is, and 5 is in that regards different. So I couldn't, for me, it would be difficult to just make it exactly the same as 4. I might throw a bit lower for sure, but I don't know if they're gonna follow me in that regard.
Yeah, it wouldn't be exactly the same as 4 unless we lowered 4 to 1.0, 1.25. I mean, it will be the exact, it'll be higher, yeah, so, okay.
Mr. Chairman, one thing Mr. Griggs was kind enough to remind me, I do need to put on record that the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission did meet last week and voted to recommend approval of both the comprehensive plan and zoning resolution amendments as presented. So it's a statutory requirement that that recommendation be provided to you. I know I emailed it out to you, but for the sake of the public record and those in attendance, I wanted to let them know that another body did review this, and they were in agreement with the numbers as presented.
So I won't make any motions.
Okay. Do we have a motion otherwise?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to recommend approval of the following to the Genoa Township Board of Trustees. The subject comprehensive plan amendment dated January 17th, 2023. Zoning Commission case number 2023-02, incorporating exhibits A through G. We do not have any edits, and I'm not sure what you mean in terms of findings of fact.
You don't need finding of facts.
I didn't think so. So I would make that motion.
Does it need to reference that we're sending it to the Board of Trustees or not on this? No.
I think it's inherent in the recommendation.
Yeah, you don't need to, that's just part of the statute.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Mr. Schaefer, roll call, please.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Did anyone second this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes.
Mr. Leff.
Yes, motion passes. That will bring us to, the time is now 7:44. I will call the order. Genoa Township Zoning Commission initiated zoning resolution amendment, zoning case 2023-03, to reflect and comply with provisions of the Ohio Revised Code, Article 1, revise certain definitions, Article 4, modify density regulations, Article 7, 9, and 14, increase certain minimum lot sizes, Article 8, and supplement divergence review standards, Article 27, along with various amendments related to such revisions for the purposes of consistency, clarity, accuracy, and proper administration. This is continued from February 15th, 2023. All those going to be speaking on this, please rise and be sworn in. If you're going to say anything at all at the mic, please rise. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Be seated. Legal notice for this meeting was printed and published on February 1st, 2023 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the General Township Hall on January 24th of 2023. Following exhibits were added or updated. Exhibit C, the sign-in sheets. Exhibit E, the DCR PC recommendation made February 23rd of 2023. And Exhibit G, all public comments received between January 27th, 2023 and February 27th, 2023. Sorry, I think I misread that. That would be January 17th, 2023 and February 27th, 2023. Mr. Schaefer, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like the comprehensive plan hearing, I did a presentation of this overall, I guess just a quick recap. So what we're doing here in the resolution is, in Article 1, we're just tidying up a whole bunch of administrative technical stuff to match the ORC and eliminate some potential loopholes. Article 4, which is definitions, we're revising the definition of net density to better match the net developable acreage definition. The heart of this amendment is really in Article 9, where we are revising the densities in the zoning resolution. We are lowering them relatively significantly to match the comprehensive plan that you just recommended for approval, thereby eliminating the conflict that we had had previously where the resolution was allowing higher densities in the comp plan. So again, as we've sort of noted in these discussions, the hope is we stick with these numbers and the procedures we're putting in place, and we're staying in line with the comp plan. And I know I said during the other hearing, we're hoping that we can try to get ourselves in a place where the expectations for the developers are clear, the expectations for the township and the residents are clear, and we get a document that works for all parties. Not going to be perfect for all parties, but a document that I think works, and we feel like we can all, work together with the development community on making a reality. To go with that, we're adding also a density into the Planned Community Facilities District. That's Article 14. Currently, Article 14 has no maximum density recommended in it, and while it doesn't allow traditional single-family development, I was always sort of worried that someone would come in with a product type that either A, we didn't anticipate, or B, try to sort of backdoor into a PCF to try to get around the density regulations and try to propose a PCF. That's really a PRD, but we could find ourselves in a position where it'd be hard to argue against. So we've got some max densities in there that are in line with the comprehensive plan. The densities in the Hoover watershed overlay are coming out. They're going to defer to the planned residential district or the PCF district, whatever planned district we're utilizing, which then again falls back in the comp plan. So you can sort of see how it's building upon itself and providing that stability moving forward. And then if we end up in a scenario where the comprehensive plan actually recommends or allows for, I should say, a higher density than what the zoning resolution allows for, we've built a divergence standard into the code back in Article 27 that says that is one of your review standards now is if someone asks for a density divergence, that density needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and then that's how we tie it all together. And again, I know there's some question about, well, why couldn't we just have done that before and avoided all this? The problem again was before the resolution was allowing a higher number than the comp plan, so there was really never a need for a divergence. I know years ago they were making people get divergence to the comprehensive plan. When I came on board, I said, you guys are not doing it the right way. That's not how this works, and that's why, candidly, there was that change in thought. I think they alluded to, that we used to do this and it was fine, and it was fine until, like I said, development got very heated, things got sort of contentious. I came in and said, this isn't the right way of doing it. We're probably going to get burned, and then we saw the contention there shortly thereafter. So in hopes, like I said, now working to get these documents all in line and, reflecting the wishes of the citizenry, I think the best that we can while still acknowledging the realities of some of the pressures that we're up against. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. We'll now open it up for public comment. Anybody wishing to come up, name and address?
My name is Rick Wheeland. I'm at 9500 Britton Woods Drive in Galena. My first thing might go back to a little bit that you mentioned before in that comprehensive plan. You mentioned a increase in the suburban residential area from 20,000 to 30,000 square feet.
Yes.
Where did that number come from? Why did you guys try to increase those lots that size? Why did you want to increase it from 20,000 to 30,000?
So it would be more in line with what we were proposing from an overall density perspective with PRD.
If you would calculate that out, that would be, the 20,000 would be about 2.2 2 acres, like the density would be about 2.2 if they would build a suburban residential. And if by making it a 30,000 square feet lot, I think it makes it 1.4, something like that.
So it's just a way to change your density
Basically,
numbers is what it is?
because otherwise maybe, our thought was that otherwise a developer comes in and instead they see they cannot go so high anymore in a PRD, and instead of a PRD, they're gonna say like, oh, we're gonna do a suburban residential neighborhood, and then they can still get that density to 2.2, just with some other rules. I mean, technically, suburban residential is only acceptable in Area 1. That's how it is written up. So it's not like this is happening in.
Just because there's sewer available and stuff.
It's not per se only sewer, that's how it's written in the code.
Is it?
So it's not in 4, 5, 2, 3, so.
What it could be in the future.
I mean, if
If you get
if
sewer
any
stuff
one,
there,
if
could
any one of us on
Right.
the
Sewer
board
is
would
only
change it,
dependent
or
on
we,
PRD.
but according to the rules and the zoning resolution, it's not possible.
Okay, okay. So my question is, sometimes, I don't know if you guys concern yourselves with this, but when you take a 20,000 square foot lot with the same road frontage and stuff on it, and then made it to a 30,000 square foot lot, all you're doing is increasing the depth of that lot by 107 feet. So you're making the backyards bigger or whatever and stuff for it.
This is basically if you have like 10 acres, or, I mean, or 3
Well,
acres.
it's
I don't
gonna
know
be
what the
developed, it's
minimum
gonna be
is, but-
developed by a developer and stuff.
Not necessarily deeper, it could be wider
Yeah, it could
and
be
and a little
anything.
bit deeper. They don't, like our 20,000 square foot lot has certain requirements, right?
Well, you
Schaefer?
could be, but here's from a developer standpoint, they're not gonna make it wider, see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They're gonna keep it as narrow as they can so they can get as many lots in there.
That's true, but
That's-
because it's 30,000, it also means lesser units. I mean,
The
Not-
density's decreasing.
It just depends on the property and stuff.
But it
see?
lowered the density in that community.
Well, you can change, right, you can change your density and stuff, but you should also think about maybe you might wanna increase your setbacks or something then on those 30,000 acre
We've
lots.
done that in the last few different.
You didn't do it to this one, you kept them all the same on it.
Correct.
You know, so
The
I would suggest
resolution-
you guys
the
might
resolution was
consider,
changes.
might suggest you might consider changing some of those setbacks, not the setbacks so much, but just the road frontages on those lots. You've increased it by 50% as far as the area of the lot, but you kept all the other dimensions the same. You might consider changing, instead of 85 feet or for road frontage, you might move it up to 100 or 110 feet.
Good point.
Some of those issues. And same with side yard setbacks. I'd suggest that they get increased from 10 or 12 to 15 to 18 feet on those lots because of that increase and stuff. It would make it a lot better, nice, in the community and stuff, instead of having stuff tighter as far as those bigger lots go. And really, most people don't need that big of a deep backyard and stuff. So we'd be providing a lot better looking neighborhood versus just a lot of strips of, grass space and stuff in the back of yards there for everybody. So that was my issue on that part of it or whatever and stuff that I wanted to bring up. There's some other language in there about dumpsters that you guys wrote on this stuff too or whatever and stuff, under 609.01. I don't know if you guys are aware of all that stuff in that language, as far as requiring dumpsters not to be placed in the front yards of houses, and they have to be screened. Is there a reason for that to be put in this resolution? And what's the stuff behind it?
I think Joe is looking for it.
We'll let you get through your list, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah, also then when you go back to 802.1, in your first language in the revised red line draft, you still have 20,000 square feet in there.
I'm sorry.
In your paperwork that you're submitting, in the paperwork that the planning commission and stuff approved, they approved it without correcting that number in your paperwork. I'm looking at it online right now and it's not
Is
changed.
that the
so-
latest version?
What was
Because
what was the number on that again?
802.1,
Yes, that section.
one paragraph.
Mr. Bernier, if you recall, I believe you actually mentioned that to
I
me a
know.
while back. That would probably need to be a change if we were moving forward tonight. We would have to modify.
Well, I'm glad I did that for you guys,
Yeah,
because the
but
planning
I
commission didn't
mentioned
do
that
it.
once to
We
him.
appreciate it. We appreciate that residents get involved.
He needs to
It's a
read
lot.
some of your stuff.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned it last.
Actually, my thought was just removing, sorry, I'll turn this off here for real quick. My thought was
80601, I have 30.
802.01.
1, yeah.
Yeah, 802.
My thought on that was actually just removing the square footage number completely.
that
I don't
thing, yeah.
feel like it needs to be in there. I think it's redundant.
Is it redundant? Yeah.
And it would just eliminate the problem.
Yeah, so that was a question on what you had in there then, as far as what you're contemplating with dumpsters and stuff, Joe. I'm approaching it more from a builder standpoint and stuff like that, or from people remodeling their houses. If we have to set a dumpster or something out there, it sounds like you guys are trying to put regulations where it has to be screened, is what it calls for in the new resolution. It has to be fenced in, or it has to be not even put on the property unless it's behind the front building line of the property, I believe it reads.
I'd recommend making an appointment with Mr. Schaefer, maybe. because
Well,
those
I
are
don't
good
want you to
points.
approve a draft here or amendment
Wanted-
tonight.
oh,
If you guys want to
tonight, okay.
continue it to the next meeting, make these corrections, that's fine. Okay? Same with some of your building height definitions and stuff in there. 2 years ago, I don't know if you guys were on the board or not, or who changed it, but somebody changed all the height requirements for accessory buildings in the township. Right now, you have Orange Township, which has their building height requirements at 35 feet for houses and accessory buildings. You have Berkshire Township that has a pretty much a building height for accessory buildings that's based off of what they call the mean measurement, where you have to measure from the ground up to the average between a roof or whatever to determine the height of that structure. And that's carried on pretty much 90% of all townships have that in their documentation for heights. Our township, 2 years ago, changed ours. We used to have that. That used to be the presiding code back in 20 and 21. Then they changed it to a different code where they're maximizing the height at 22 feet for accessory structures. And this is on 2-acre lots. So what we found is a building-wise or whatever, most of our new homes and stuff we're putting in, we're trying to put in more 812 to 1012 to 1212 pitches and stuff on it. So when you go ahead and design a house like that, and then you add an accessory structure in there, and you try to match the pitch or whatever and stuff on it to bring it close to the house settings and stuff, that you're always over that limit. It doesn't give you enough room to put your buildings and stuff in there at that height limit. So while you guys are addressing this, or if it needs to be addressed in the future, I wanted to bring it up or whatever and see if it's something to be considered to roll back to those same type of stuff that we had before, which I think was working fine or whatever. You can even tweak that in a way as far as some of the stuff on it. You know, I think other agencies use that straight across the boards, but there's some other limitation numbers you can put in there, and a lot of it might go by acreage and stuff. A lot of times if you have a 2-acre lot, you've got a lot bigger setting for
I
this
need you
stuff.
to wrap it up, because we were going over the time, and I gave you some more time because we were having discussion, so.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
need you to wrap it up.
Okay, well, that's what I had on my table and stuff here. I just want to find out if Joe found anything about those dumpsters.
Okay. We'll come back to that after we get through public comment.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Did you want me to talk about the dumpsters now, or?
If you want to talk about it now.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So that language was put in there a couple years ago. Well, we changed it a couple years ago.
Is it again?
I'm talking about section 60901. This actually is a section we don't have proposed for any revisions, nor an article we're proposing any revisions, so I'd be hesitant to make any changes here. But since the topic came up, so it reads, trash, junk, and litter shall be controlled and stored in containers. Dumpsters and other similar types of large waste containers which are typically not moved by manual means and which are not considered to be portable storage unit shall not be permitted in a required front yard and shall be enclosed and screened in accordance with section 2003. I can tell you, we don't enforce that against active construction sites. If there was a new home being built and they got like a dumpster out there because they're building, I don't require that to be screened. That's sort of a temporary thing. We do that even with the non-residential building stuff. When they put out construction materials and dumpsters, we just consider that part of the construction site. That provision primarily was in there because we realized we have a golf course in a rural residential district that had a dumpster in its parking lot, and there was no rules that applied to it whatsoever. And we started getting we got complaints about it at one point. So we thought, that got me thinking, we probably need to have some rules in place regarding permanent sited dumpsters. We also have a section for the pods for when people have those delivered on their driveways, and there's a permit people can pull for those. There's some regulations regarding that. We allow them on driveways. Just we don't want it sitting in someone's yard generally. So that's where the regulations came from. I understand the concern about the construction sites, but yeah, if someone was starting a new development and they had dumpsters out there because they were building a house, I'm not going to be going after that.
Because right now, you just have it going continues through all your zoning places. Maybe it's appropriate to put it in an industrial place or a PRD or something where it's more required, like a golf course or something, versus in rural residential, suburban residential, and those other areas. Something to consider. Thanks.
Thank you. Next. Anyone?
Hello, I'm Sarah Grandomenico. I live at 3821 Rome Corners Road. If you pull up the map of the different areas, I live in, is it Area 5? So I guess my question is, it sounds like Mr. Schaefer was explaining that you're worried about change the densities, that different developers will come after the county. Is that kind of the township? Is that kind of what the big worry is a little bit? Anyone gonna answer that?
If we change the densities?
Yeah, like if you raise them or lower them, whatever you were saying, like
We're lowering.
lowering them,
We
okay.
are lowering them now.
Okay. So my big question is keeping 5 kind of where, is it Mirasol is being developed? Harlem Township, Romanelli and Hughes is developing a lot in Harlem Township, our neighboring township, right, where all the other rural areas are. They're making plenty of money, keeping that all rural residential. I mean, if it goes kind of with the area, why would we be worried keeping those areas that are still rural residential, that, but be worried of Romanelli and Hughes coming in, you know, coming after the township to keep it as is when a neighboring township is still doing that? Does that make sense? Because it is what it is. Another township, they're making a profit doing that there. They can sell it, keep it rural residential, and build it and do, you know. So I don't really understand that. Why are we accommodating a company when the citizens here are obviously screaming to keep it how it is?
So anybody who's a homeowner can ask for a rezoning to a different development standard. It's already rural residential, but if they want to make it a PRD, then we are lessening the amount of homes that they can put in that area.
Did somebody ask for that?
Sure, yeah.
Change that?
It was 2.2. We're taking it down to what number again? 6.5. Yeah. So we're lessening the amount of homes that can go in an area
Okay.
by doing that.
So we're
Up till
making
now,
bigger lots in
Okay.
the areas is what we're doing here.
but it's already rural residential. But if anybody can come in and ask for a rezoning for their land, okay?
Okay.
And now we're saying you can't put as many homes in that area.
Mm-hmm.
We are taking away we're lessening it.
Okay.
And it's not for a company.
Mm-hmm. What about Mirasol, though?
It- Zoning isn't for or against a company. It's for the protection and the understanding in a whole community.
So you're laying down rules for them to follow if they come in and,
But please please understand, Mirasol or Mira Luna has already applied. So whatever we have done tonight or in the future does not apply to them because their application is already in. We can't retroactively apply these standards. Whether we like it or not,
Right.
we legally cannot.
It's like it's grandfathered from before.
okay, unless it gets voted against, if they have to reapply.
If they had to reapply, then it would apply to the current standards in place, which would then open it up to the watershed and to whatever new resolution, as long as it's 30 days past the approval from the Board of Trustees,
Okay, gotcha.
right? 30? I did say that right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One thing that's slightly different than what we're saying is we are lowering it from 2.2, which was the maximum allowed, down to 1.65, but it used to be 1.35 maximum. So we're lowering it from 1 point, but it's being raised from what it used to be
I like how you
6
say it.
years ago.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just the truth.
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It should be what you had suggested. And why compromise with that when it once worked at the 1.35?
I don't know.
So I agree with you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Regarding the topic of Harlem, Harlem is in the process of supplementing their own plans, and they are looking at doing some overlay districts that would increase densities in some of those areas where they feel like they've got the greatest development annexation threat, to be honest, regarding what's happening with Columbus bringing sewer up from the south to the county line. So I would say what you see going on in Harlem right now may not be what you see going on in the future. Now, also, I'm not aware those plans have been approved yet. And those overlays are only subject to certain areas where they feel like they've got the greatest pressure. Some other areas, they are leaving what they're doing. So I just throw that out there that even Harlem is looking at, they know that Harlem candidly is in a much tougher position than we are.
One
Even-
thing that's important too is Galena, as far as annexation, which is very hard for a township to do anything about because we can't have sewer.
Yep.
Galena has pretty much stated, we won't give you sewer unless you let us annex you, which is a very smart thing on their part. So there's absolutely zip we can do about that. So if
Pulled
we
something out of
raise-
the old Columbus playbook.
Well, I mean, if we raised our density to 5.0, they're not gonna do it because they can't do it because we can't give them sewer and Galena's not gonna give them the sewer. So, I mean, it's really a tough spot.
Well, we can. all rule
Townships are
residential.
definitely at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. Townships are definitely at
Oh,
a
absolutely.
disadvantage in a lot
I mean,
of
it's
ways.
just
And
because
we
we
have a
do
piece that's
talk
being
about,
looked at
we
right now to
talk-
be annexed potentially.
we talk about being prepared for annexation, but there's only so much we can do.
Correct.
Correct.
Unless, yeah,
Rural residential. You don't have.
works well, yeah.
Next, anybody?
Hello, my name's Mike Keller, 6788 Fleur Drive. I guess I caught a little bit from the initial discussions before, and I just want to make a point. I live in Area 5. I think it should be 135, that's what it was. I know there was some argument about Mr. Schaefer saying we could get sued. I don't think any of your vote, whatever you do, shouldn't be based on some fear of that. You're doing the right thing, whether it's 135 or 165. Also, other comment this gentleman made about the dumpster being in there. He says he didn't mean, they're not gonna bother anybody. That should be changed, just for him to say, you know, that he's not gonna do anything about it. If what I think he's concerned about, what would be my concern is if I was doing a remodeling job, my house had a dumpster there temporarily, that you could come out and cite me and say I have to put screening around it, which wouldn't be fair. And I know Mr. Schaefer says, oh, we're only did it for this one golf course, but it's still in there. I think it should be, I think its wording should be changed on that a little bit. But again, I want to go back on the 1.35. That's what it was. Developers came in, Area 5, built with 1.35, no problems. I'm sure they did well on it. It doesn't make any sense it should be increased from the old one. Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once?
I just want to say a quick word. I know I show up here periodically. My name's Teresa Parker. I live at 8925 Cupstone Drive, and it's on the Hoover. And I'm here to put in a friendly reminder that everyone voted for the referendum, over 70%. And I know Joe likes to, I want to say this briefly, as a nurse, practicing to prevent being sued has ruined healthcare. We're so worried about being sued as physicians and nurses, we don't take care of the patient adequately. And I don't want us to make poor decisions and higher density to prophylactically prevent being sued. And I think if we listen to our people who voted for the referendum, it would be a good idea to have our numbers match up the overlay to protect the Hoover and our residents. And it just seems common sense that if all the other areas match the Hoover overlay, why wouldn't 5, just to be consistent? Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right, public comments closed. Comments?
Mr. Chairman, on the dumpsters, I mean, that's not a change that's being proposed. Certainly, you know, Joe, I saw Joe making notes, but your ability to modify something that is not proposed to being changed, you really can't do anything about that tonight. But it's something that I know Joe made notes on and he can look at moving forward.
Yeah, there's a number of things for future
Yeah,
revisions.
we'll add it to the list of stuff to look at, and if there's a better way we can do it, that's why we have brought Mr. Griggs on.
Time
To help us with that
restraint or
kind of stuff.
Something of that nature, temporary versus someone thinking permanent.
Oh, I got all kinds of examples I can give Joe.
Wonderful.
We define portable storage units as those temporary type of things. So maybe just the way we have it worded in Article 6 and some of those other articles, maybe it just needs to be reworded to be a little clearer. And that's, again, something we can work on in the future. And Mr. Griggs, I'm sure will happy to help.
Good.
I'm good with it, yeah.
So I think the only question then would be, the gentleman brought up, the square footage and whether you wanted to change that. Joe, you mentioned deleting it in 80201.
Yeah, that would be the modification. I
That would be
make.
a modification.
I just don't see why it was in there. If a lot is smaller than 30,000 square feet and it existed before this code, I'm basically going to consider it grandfathered and issue a zoning permit, assuming everything else is zoning compliant, so I don't know why we would be
But does,
redundant on that
Paul,
fact.
can you bring up that section 802.1, please? If you take that square footage out, does that article still make sense?
It's just a list of uses, so it should just say single-family dwellings if you take out the square footage. It's really not supposed to be a dimensional standard in that section.
Right.
It's supposed to be a use standard.
So we would strike everything after dwellings?
Single-family dwellings, yep.
Period.
All that other stuff is captured. Paul, if you scroll down to, what is it, 806, where the dimensional standards are?
So 802.1 would just say single-family.
Single-family dwellings. So here you can see 80601 talks about the minimum square footage and even has the language in there about the portion of the CAD doesn't count towards that requirement. So it's truly redundant.
So that can be part of your motion to approve with that modification.
Yeah, and what's important is there's a distinguish between the lot and the use from a regulatory standpoint.
Right.
Yep, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Those
to
are,
delete
they're
it.
two different things.
You ready?
Anybody got anything you wanna talk
Everybody
about?
good? Mr. Chair, I would move to recommend approval of the following to the Genoa Township Board of Trustees. The subject zoning text amendment dated January 17th, 2023, which seeks to revise and edit zoning provisions within the following locations of the Genoa Township zoning resolution. Articles 1, 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, and 27, in accordance with Article 26 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution and the recommendations of the Genoa Township Comprehensive Plan, and providing for severability and repeal of prior zoning resolution requirements, regulations, and standards. Zoning Commission Case Number 2023-03, incorporating Exhibits A through G. This motion shall include the following modification to the subject amendment. In Section 802.1, strike all of the language or wording after the word dwellings. For clarification, revisions to the zoning resolution shall be limited only to those specified within the subject amendment document and those necessary to ensure proper and consistent spelling, grammar, and formatting. The approved revisions shall not include any comments or notes within the draft document, any existing text within the resolution which has not been expressly modified or deleted shall otherwise remain as is. This motion to recommend approval of the subject zoning text and map amendment is based on the following findings of fact and conclusions. Number one, said amendment is found to be consistent with the Genoa Township Comprehensive Plan pursuant to Section 108 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution. And that's it.
Second. Anybody?
Second?
Discussion? Good?
Good.
Mr. Schaefer, roll.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes.
Mr. Leff.
Yes, motion carries. Time is now 8:13. We'll conclude that part. Any other business right now, Joe?
No, the trustees continue to work on talking to potential candidates for the annual appointments. As far as your March meeting goes, the only item on the agenda is the continued hearing for Mira Luna. As I noted earlier, they had emailed me, or noted at the last meeting, they have emailed and requested a continuance to that. So I suspect, assuming that it remains the case, that you'll just have a motion to, for continuance on that agenda and no actual substantive discussion. But I obviously can't tell the public you're not going to be discussing it because it's your decision, not mine, and we can't discuss it this evening. Other than that, we have no new applications for March, so the March meeting, if it is a continuance request, may be relatively brief. Unless you want to start diving into some of these other zoning topics or giving me your list of stuff you want me to look at to prepare a future amendment.
Spring break.
There you go. Spring break.
Any other public comment for the general good of the order?
Concerning the stuff I brought up earlier, then I want to see when I can get some time with with the commission here to address those issues as far as the lot sizes that you just approved on a 30-acre lot, 30-square-foot lot.
The discussion is, talk to Mr. Schaefer, set up an appointment, go from there, and other than that, it'll
Do you guys have a workshop or anything? Do you guys ever sit down and figure out lots
that
and
would
stuff?
be this meeting, when we have our monthly meetings. So that if there's open public comment at that point, we could have that discussion.
All right.
That would be later.
And he'll bring it up at the
Exactly,
meetings.
right, or whatever.
If there's comment, I'm willing to just accept stuff in writing or the public comment here. I'm obviously happy to meet with anyone who wants to meet with me. Just know that, I can't guarantee you anything. All I'm gonna do is just take the notes and pass it along to the commission. So sometimes if you want to just write
Well, I
something
brought
out
it up tonight and presented it, but I didn't get any feedback on it. You guys just,
We're not,
you
we
guys just
can't,
passed
but
it
but that,
aside.
but
so-
that part, but the part you're talking about isn't really a part of what we're talking about this evening.
Well,
So-
it was included in your draft.
No, it-
No, it's
No.
not.
Yeah, the sizes are included in there.
It's
Simpson.
that size, but to
Right.
make additional changes, that's substantive, and that has to be
We're
something different.
very
Okay.
receptive to
So
what you have to say. It's just,
We'll be
if you
willing
would
to
tell
discuss
Mr.
it.
Schaefer, he'll bring it up at a future meeting.
Yeah, I'll put it on my notes of things when we have those discussions with the commission about stuff we may want to look at changing in the future.
All right, sounds good, thanks.
Thank you.
Next meeting will be March 13th in this room at 7 PM. Do I have a motion?
So move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Meeting is concluded at 8:16 PM.